On the 4th of August, I had my flight to London. On the 5th of August, I would have gone to York to visit the National Railway Museum, and then to Edinburgh by train on the International Rail Pass, and then back to London to my hotel in the evening. On the 6th of August, I would have had a trip through Wales, through Cardiff and Swansea. On the 7th of August, I would have had a day in London. Then on the 8th of August, I would have gone to Brighton and Eastbourne, had a little visit through the south of London, and I don't know what the hell that was. Okay, some passengers got invisible. Right, let's just continue. Right, and on the 9th of August, I would have had my flight home. Now I used a lot of wood halves. Why did I do so? Because a lot of this did not happen. Welcome to the slightly different style of video, a Storytime video, where I talk about my dream trip through the United Kingdom, which ended up being a total disaster. So, a couple of months ago, my mom and I, we did all the booking. We got the airplane, we got a hotel, we did have some problems with Lufthansa, so we had to switch to British Airways, and we got the Interrail pass, and pretty much everything was all ready to go. Yeah, and then I was waiting. I was full of euphoria, and I couldn't wait. Like I'm half British, and I couldn't wait to visit the UK for the first time, and it was special for me. And then the day came, the 4th of August, and I had my flight to London City Airport, and yeah, it was amazing. I must say the flight was absolutely amazing. British Airways was actually arrived early at London City Airport, and I did actually end up losing my fear of flying that I had before. Like before that, I was like, oh my god, I'm kind of afraid of the flight that's coming up, but I didn't have to because it was amazing, and I lost my fear of flying during that flight. So yeah, and so I arrived at London City Airport, and I was there in England for the first time, and I was like, yeah, welcome home, man. Like, it felt good to arrive there. Yeah. Then, yeah, of course, so one of the things that I still had to do was to purchase a ticket for the London Tube, which, so I wanted to get like a travel card for a week for the zones 1 to 6. Which at London City Airport apparently was not possible. So I had to get like a paper ticket for the day, like for one day only, but it was fine. It was gonna get me to my hotel that I had to check in at 3 p.m. Like it was alright, right? And there was an Indian guy working there at the city airport DLR station, and he was very nice, you know. So yeah, I got my ticket, and then I had a ride with a DLR, which was, like, amazing. And then I also rode on the tube, on the Jubilee line. That was my first time on the tube, on the Jubilee line, and I loved it. I loved the DLR and the tube, and the Jubilee line especially. Like, it's... And I know this is going to sound weird, but I like trains, right? And... So I was on the Jubilee line, and it's like super loud, and like it rapes your ears. But for me, it was like special. I was like, hell yeah, and it felt good. And yeah, so what I did was, like, you know, I was not gonna depart from Waterloo Station at any of my days, so I went to Waterloo, where we should be arriving now in the game as well. Hold up, let's wait for it. Actually, there's no need to wait for it. So I arrived at Waterloo. Here we are. Waterloo Station. There. So yeah, I arrived at Waterloo Station on the Jubilee line. This is the Bakerloo line, but it's alright. And I arrived at Waterloo Station, and I got myself a Oyster card. And yeah, so essentially I had that Oyster card then, and the Oyster card was then for the other 5 days that I was going to be there. It was a bit of a waste of money. Like, I could have just had the Oyster card for all 6 days that I was there, but nah, doesn't really matter. I had my card now, and I was at Waterloo Station, which had free Wi-Fi, so that was amazing. And I was able to message my family that everything had gone well, that I was at Waterloo Station. I took pictures of Waterloo Station, and Waterloo Station is also quite beautiful. Like, I had only seen it before in Train Simulator, and it looks kind of dreadful there. But the real Waterloo Station, I love it. Alright, and then, yeah, as I said, my check-in was at 3 p.m, so after watching trains at Waterloo for a couple hours, it was time to get to said hotel. It was the Travelodge London City Hotel, and the tube station to get there was called Aldgate East. So I took the tube to Aldgate East, which I think I arrived there with the District line. And yeah, the funny thing is, right, so I got to Aldgate East, fine. I did end up going the wrong way a little bit on the Jubilee line, because I didn't see that there was actually a much quicker connection. But, you know, I didn't actually get lost, you know? On the tube, I didn't get lost. But then, I got out of Aldgate East Station. So I arrived there with the tube, I got out of Aldgate East Station, and the first thing I did was get lost in the streets of London. Like, like, if I have the tube, if I have some sort of metro or underground, I can't get lost. But once I'm out of the public rail network, I just got lost. Like, it's you know. But it was all funny, right? I didn't actually properly get lost, but it was all fun, you know. And I did end up finding the hotel. But what I did learn, right? So Aldgate East is in the borough called City of London, which is a bit of an odd name, but that's just the name of the borough. And yeah, and I before I went to London, I thought London was this great and civilized city that was huge. But then I came to the City of London, which is the very center of London, and my god, it's a fucking savage shithole, right? I heard before that London is not a nice, central London is not a nice place. And I thought they were kind of exaggerating. No, man. Central London is dreadful. It's bad. And the homeless people there, I had seen homeless people before, but the ones at London, they look so disheveled, and it's I can't really put it into words. You know. So that was the first thing that was kind of not good, but I was like, okay, right? I'm not going to be in London all the time. I'll be mostly traveling or in trains around the country. I can do it, right? So yeah, so after getting lost around the city, I did end up finding my hotel at around 4 p.m. And I arrived there at the register. And then I found out my hotel that I got a booking confirmation email for was not paid for. So yeah, in that booking confirmation email, which usually means that your hotel has already been paid for, there was a very small small letters that had a string of text that pretty much ruined everything. Because it said that international bank cards are not accepted, and I would have to pay at check-in, right? And that was a problem. Because, first of all, I'm 18 years old. I've completely forgotten to mention, right? This is my first time traveling alone, right? That makes it even worse. So I don't have a bank card, and I had £390 of cash on me, which was not enough for the £475 I had to pay for the 5 nights at the hotel. So I was like, oh god, what's gonna happen now? Am I gonna have to sleep on the streets of London now? I had never had such a feeling like that, the fear of having to live on the streets in a savage city. And yeah, I was very shocked. I didn't know what to do. And then so the colleague that was working there at the hotel, she got her manager, and she recommended me to use the service Western Union. Western Union is like a way that my mum could send cash from her bank account to the United Kingdom, and then I would go to a pickup station somewhere, and I could pick up the money in cash, so I could then pay the hotel with that. So that was the plan. Now, in order to contact my mum, I needed Wi-Fi because I didn't have any mobile data in the UK. And so yeah, I had to go somewhere where I knew that I would get Wi-Fi, and I knew that I had Wi-Fi at Waterloo Station, so that is exactly where I went. And yeah, I did actually travel there on the Bakerloo line, where I am right now here in Trainsim World 2. So yeah, and I did like the proper Bakerloo thing, because I actually traveled from Baker Street to Waterloo Station, which, as far as I know, is the origin of the name Bakerloo line. You know, Baker Street and Waterloo, and then Bakerloo, combine the two. Like, you know, it was fun, you know, seeing a route that I had already seen in a game before. And yeah, right. So then I got to Waterloo and I had my Wi-Fi, and I had to tell my mum to like send me that money. And my mum painstakingly, like, she got her friends around. They were all like looking how to use that service. Like, it's not very user friendly. Western Union is not a user friendly service. And yeah, but she painstakingly did manage to get the money like a couple hours later, right? So I was there at Waterloo Station waiting for hours for my mum to respond, and out of fear of perhaps having to sleep in the streets of London, right? And I was already thinking, like, maybe I should book like a hostel. And my mom said, no, wait a little. We're getting things done right now. And yeah, so they did get the money transferred, and I got this like pickup code. I think it's the MTCN number or something. And I did get that from my mom. She sent it to me, and I was like, hell yeah. And then, so the only thing I had to do now was look up for a pickup agent somewhere, and then I'd have to show them the code and my passport. That is all I had to do, and then I would be able to pick up the money that I could then use to stay in the hotel. So I looked up for pickup agents on maps, and I found 2 of them, and I went to both of them, and they both did not exist anymore. Like, there was one that was somewhere in the middle of nowhere. I don't know where it was. Somewhere in the central... Like, it's not the middle of nowhere, but it was somewhere in central London. And central London is so huge that you essentially have no idea where you are, usually. And then there was another one. I remember where that was. It was somewhere in the city of Westminster. And I remember that because of the road signs. Like, Westminster has these very iconic road signs. And that one didn't exist either. And yeah, I ended up finding out from my mum that there were a lot of bad reviews for Western Union by other customers, because yeah, it seems like they're on a bit of a decline right now and everything is closing. And I was like, oh my god, so does that mean I'm not going to be able to get my money to get into my hotel or what? And yeah, you know. Then so what I did then was go back to the hotel. And I was going to try to beg them to stay. So I had this sheet. No, I didn't have the sheet, but I had a picture of the sheet that my mum sent me with the MTCN number and all the money that I would have. And I showed that to that manager again. And I begged them to stay in that hotel. And then I also offered them to pay, like I had some cash on me. You remember I had like £300 of cash? I ended up spending some of them, right? So I had like £300 of cash on me, and I would be able to afford one night with that. And I was like, I can give you half of the hotel price, right? I can give you like 200 something pounds. And I showed them the sheet. Like, look, I have this sheet here. I have the MTCN number from Western Union. Please, can I pay half the price and then give you the rest tomorrow so that I can sleep in this hotel tonight? Right? And the manager declined, saying, nope, it's against Travelodge company policy. And I was like, oh, fucking hell, man, what am I gonna do now? So, luckily, that manager knew of a Western Union pickup agent nearby the hotel, like close by, and yeah, so she recommended it, and it was 8 p.m. already at that point, and it was getting dark, and I was walking through the city of London when it was already getting dark, and I heard from other people before that central London, or London in general, is quite scary to walk through in the evening, and I thought, okay, that's a little bit exaggerated, you know, like it can't be that bad. It is. Like central London during the daytime is bad enough, right? It's already quite savage, and the homeless people look so. Like I don't want to insult them. Like God bless the homeless people. I hope they get help, man. But they're scary, man. I don't know. And yeah, and you know, as luck would have it, I went to that Western Union point, and the signs for Western Union were still there, and I was like, oh yeah, thank God, right? The pickup agent is still here. So I walked into that shop, and there was this Indian guy working there. And then I asked him whether I could pick up money here. And he was like, Western Union contract finished. No more Western Union here. And I was like, okay, then, yeah. And I said, well, thank you anyway. Bye. And yeah, I learned at that moment that rude Indians exist as well, apparently. So yeah, I went back to the hotel room, and yeah, and I still didn't have a hotel room, and I didn't have the money for it, and yeah, and there was some black guy working there, and he offered the, you know, the manager to allow me to stay there while paying half the money in cash as well, but she was like, no, it's against company policy, and I'm like, oh God. How inhumane can you be, right? Like, I mean, I'm gonna pay you the money for the hotel. Why can't you just let me stay? Like, you know, if I came there with no money, I would get it, right? But I was there with money. I had money. I had cash money. I could have paid for one night. Why can't you just fucking let me stay there, right? But you know, so that black guy who was trying to help me, right? He got on the computer. And he looked up for 3 more Western Union pickup agents nearby that were still open at that time of night. Like it was like 9 p.m. at that point already, and by the time he was done looking, it must have been like almost 10 p.m. And you know, so and yeah, and we didn't even know if they were still open, right? They could have been shut down as well. We didn't know that. But we had to hope for best, and I was hoping that I was going to get the money and just stay in that hotel. And yeah. So at around 10 p.m., I went to the closest one to the hotel, the closest pickup agent. Oh, and of course, as luck would have it, London got even scarier at 10 p.m., and the Western Union pickup agent was not there anymore. And then the other two, I couldn't find them. Because he gave me like a printed version of Google Maps, and it gave me like a road. It was like an Elizabethan Ave that was supposed to be somewhere close to the hotel, but I couldn't find it, right? And then I went to back to the hotel, and I said, "Do you know where this road is?" And he was like, "No, I'm sorry, I don't know where that road is either." And I'm like, "Well, I'm screwed then." So there was one also as well that was in South London, so that's it was a bit far away. But if it was going to be a Western Union pickup agent where I could get money, I was going to get there. You know, the tube wasn't running anymore, I think. So the guy said, the black guy said, you know, you should get a bus, and not a bus, a taxi. So they ordered a taxi for me, and I was like, my God, can I even afford that? And is he going to be able, like that Western Union pickup agent was going to close at 11 p.m. And I didn't even know if I was going to get there by that time. So, yeah, they ordered a taxi. the taxi came, and then I went out to ask the taxi driver if, first of all, he was going to get there by 11 p.m. and second of all, if I was going to be able to afford the taxi ride. And yeah, I went out and the taxi was gone, and I was like, yeah, okay. In retrospect, I am glad the taxi was gone. I didn't end up going anywhere, so I just went back to the hotel, and the manager then reluctantly agreed to book another hotel room for me for one night that I would pay with cash, which technically isn't allowed with Travelodge company policy, but she did allow me to do that. So, yeah, I got and this was not the one hotel room I was staying in. This was a completely different hotel room. So the plan was, right, I was going to sleep in that hotel room that I paid for additionally, and then give them the money for that other booking that I had, and pay full price, which essentially meant I would have paid for the first night twice. You know, but like, how can humans be so inhumane, man? It's incredible. So at that point, I was essentially, so I got into my new hotel room that I had booked, and I was homesick. Like, I think you can understand what I mean. I was homesick. I was sick of everything. I was sick of that hotel. I was sick of that manager, and I was sick of central London, that fucking savage shithole. I don't know how many times I'm going to repeat that today, that it's such a savage place. But man, London is not a civilized city. London is dreadful. I'm never going back to London again, except for as a super inconvenient railway hub where I can use the tube and then visit all those train stations. But yeah, I'm not ever going, like, the tube, luckily it goes underground, you know, through central London. Like, it doesn't go overground. Like, if you're in London, you don't have to actually see central London when you're riding the tube, which is like good. Like, it's such a good thing that I will never have to see central London ever again, and I don't fucking want to, man. You know. Okay, so yeah, I was homesick and I called my mom, and I teared up a bit because I was done for essentially at that point. Like, I couldn't keep a clear state of mind anymore after all that, and I was desperate. I wanted to get home. Like, I was gonna go to York and Edinburgh. Fuck that. I was gonna go to Wales, Cardiff and Swansea. Fuck that. A day in London. Fucking no. I'm not even gonna do that. And on the 8th of August, the ride through southern England, Brighton and Eastbourne. Fuck that as well. I want to go home. Please just get me out. I don't want to be in that dreadful city of London anymore. And I called my mom. Can you please pick me up by car? And she was like, please, son, don't cry. I can't pick you up, but can you get like a ticket or something? So we wanted to look for airplanes, but we were like, no, that's not going to work, because all the tickets were all full at that point. So that was not going to work. But then we had the other idea of booking a coach home. Like, initially I was like, coach? No coach. But at that point I was desperate. I was so desperate to go home that I was even willing to take a coach home. And yeah, so we booked a ticket at Flixbus, which was another £130. But my mum was like, you know, we paid all the money for the airplane. We paid the money for the Interrail ticket, and we're gonna pay for the Flixbus ticket. But fuck the money. Please get home, son. And I was like, oh, thank God I have such a mother that would let me do that. And you know, we did end up booking a Flixbus ticket, and I was like, thank God, I'm not gonna have to stay here any longer. And yeah. So I must say, like, I had a dreadful experience with that hotel manager, but I did end up having an amazing night in the hotel room. And the first thing I did when I got out, right, of the hotel, I checked out, and I went out of the hotel, and I never came back. I didn't want to go there. And yeah, thanks to my friend in real life who had a visit, in the UK. He was in Eastbourne. He was also the reason I was going to go to Eastbourne. Like, he recommended going to Eastbourne, and trust me, friend, I will send this video to you, right? I will go visit Eastbourne someday, but it's not going to happen in the next, I don't know, couple years. Yeah, and you know, just not London. I just don't want to go to London anymore. So yeah, so what he recommended me as well was, like, you know, I told him I was going to be traveling on a budget, and he said, you know, if you need cheap food, get the Tesco meal deal. And my God, thank you, friend from real life who recommended me to do that. You saved my life at that point, because I went to Tesco, the local Tesco nearby that hotel, and I ended up getting 4 meal deals to survive the coach ride. Oh yeah, by the way, I didn't say that, right? The coach ride was going to be through the night, right? I was going to depart at 12:30 p.m. and arrive at 8 a.m. the next day in Frankfurt, where I live. Like, I live close to Frankfurt. But yeah, so that's why I was going to get 4 meal deals, and I paid £14. Like, I didn't have a member card, so I ended up paying £3.50 instead of £3. And my God, the Tesco meal deal, like, it's amazing that is a thing, right? It's so cheap, and it's unbelievable how saturating it is. Like, I thought, you know, it was just, you know, you get like a main meal, and then you have like a little snack, and then a drink, and believe me, it is enough. It is a full meal for you. Like, it's gonna saturate you for hours. It's like a proper meal, and it's amazing. I can't speak high enough of the meal deal Tesco. If you're traveling on a budget through the UK, get Tesco meal deals. They're going to save your life. You're not going to starve if you have a Tesco nearby. Yeah, so I went to that Tesco, and then I went to the tube station, Aldgate East, and then I ended up finding out that the Hammersmith and Satie line was not running at all. So I was like, cool. Like, luckily I didn't have to use that, but still, right? So I ended up using the District line, which was only running up to Pimlico, which is not where the District line usually ends. But at that day, it was ending at Pimlico. Why? Because of vandalism. How can the vandalism be so bad that a tube line has to stop earlier? Like, again, savage shithole, London. Just, ugh. How is that possible? How could there be vandalism to the point that a tube can't run anymore? And I think the Hammersmith and Satie line was not due to vandalism, but it wasn't running because of staff shortages. Like, you know, it's still, like... But still, I must say, I love the tube, and I have my Oyster card still, and I keep that Oyster card, and I will cherish it because I had good fun on the tube. Like, despite the fact that it was having problems at the time that I was there, it was still good. Like, it ended up getting me everywhere where I needed to, and it's quite quick too, and the rides are comfortable, and they're loud, which I like, you know. So there was no problem really with the tube. So yeah, then I took the tube to Victoria Station, which was a non-stop, a service with no changes, so I didn't have to change trains. I just got on the District line and went to Victoria. And then I was there, the station, you know, and I did amazingly, right? At not close to, not far away from Victoria Station, I found a Western Union pickup agent, and I got the money, and I was like, oh my God, yeah, right? Now I can stay here. Now I can go back to that hotel and stay here. Now here's a quote from Connor from a Wacky Weekend episode. I don't know if I can stay here. I think I can, but I don't know if I should. And I ended up being like, no. I got my Flixbus ticket. I am homesick. I am not going back to that hotel, despite the fact that I got the money. So I got the money, right? And I was just going to take all of that money home. Then I spent a couple hours at Victoria Station. Again, I had Wi-Fi. And again, Victoria Station, beautiful. if I ever go to London again, I will only go to the train stations and Victoria Station. You know, not a bad station at all. So yeah, I spent there a couple of hours watching some more trains. You know, Class 377s and the Gatwick Express, and also the Class 465. I ended up seeing quite a lot of trains there, and yeah, I was happy. And at this point, I was not worried about having to be homeless in London anymore because I knew I had my Flixbus ticket, and all I had to do was to get out, right? So I was there. It's okay. So the reason I went to Victoria was because the Victoria coach station was nearby. So I found it just in time. I couldn't find it at first because there was like a place where my bus was going to go from, and it was kind of hidden. But there was an information point, and it told me where my bus was going to depart from. Like, thank God. And technically, they told you, like, you had to arrive 15 minutes before departure of your bus. I ended up arriving a tiny bit later because I couldn't find the bus. But they let me in. It was all fine. And I was going to get home. And the bus ended up leaving on time at 12:30 p.m. I think it was like 12:33 p.m. But, you know, it's on time, man. And, yeah. So then I was happy, right? There was, you know, one tiny inconvenience with the bus ride, which was that I was sitting next to a lady that wasn't quite thin, so I didn't have a lot of space on my seat, but I didn't care. I was desperate to get home, and I just, you know, I was just gonna, I can't talk, like, you know, this is exactly how I felt at that point, right? This was still, like, 3 days ago, yeah. 3 days ago is when I got the bus home. So the feelings are still very fresh. As you can probably hear, I'm still quite frustrated about everything that happened. And yeah. So yeah. And then when the bus left, I was like, okay, now I'm going to be like 1.5 hours in London, and it did end up being 80 minutes through London. Like, that's how huge the city is. And yeah, it was also peak time, you know, the bus left at like 12 p.m. and then we were traveling there at 2 p.m. So a lot of people were on the roads. Like, it's not peak time, but there were lots of people on the road. And London is always full, right? Even at night time. Like, the reason why London is so scary at night is because it's still very busy. Like you might think that busy cities at night make it less scary, but for me, it's a factor that made it even more scary. Right? But anyways, I'm getting a bit distracted here. So, I was in the bus, and amazingly, what the bus ended up doing is, whoops, the game's lagging a bit. What the bus ended up doing was going through Westminster, passing the Big Ben, so I saw the Big Ben, and then on the other side of the river, shortly after that, was the London Eye, and not far away from that, I got a short glimpse at the Tower Bridge. And I was like, hell yeah! Now I have no more reason to visit London ever again. I saw everything that I wanted to see, really. And yeah, so yeah, as I said before, I will never visit London ever again, except for as a super inconvenient rail hub with all of those train stations. But yeah. So yeah, the bus then left London. Like, there was the board. There was a sign. I mean, it was so long. Like, there was so many boards, and there was like a board that said like, Welcome to the London Borough of Bexley. And I was like, oh god, is London still not finished? Like, are we still not out of it? And then I thought that Bexley was the last one before we would get out. Like, that's as far as I remembered where Bexley was. Like, I don't know much about London's geography, but I ended up being right because the next board that we passed was Welcome to Kent. And I was like, yes, I'm out of Greater London. I have made it out of London. So, yeah, I successfully fled London at that point, and now I just had to continue fleeing back to Frankfurt, and then, you know, be picked up by my mom, who would bring me home. So, yeah, the bus went through England. It was quite beautiful. You know, England is... Like, I hold nothing against England. Like, you know, the capital is not the country. It's like, you know, Berlin is not Germany. It's the same thing. Like, Berlin is quite dreadful, but it's not what all of Germany is like, you know. Like you can't compare the capital city with the entire country. So I want to go back to England, but I just don't want to go back to London because, you know, London is ruined for me. So yeah, we went through England, and I thought we were going to take the Channel Tunnel, but no, in fact we went to Dover Port, and we ended up taking a ferry, which was quite a surprise because they did not say anything about that when I booked the ticket. I was like, okay. So we got out of the bus at Dover. There were some problems with the, like my bag had to be checked, but it was all right, you know. And then we went through the border, and then I had to show my passport, but it was all right. Everything went quite well. And then we were standing there at the port waiting for the ferry. And yeah, I ended up talking to some people and I met some friends. There were some other people who were traveling to Frankfurt, and I was like, hell yeah, we're going to travel on the same bus. Which was nice. And there was like that one guy. He was born in Poland, but he moved to Germany when he was like 3 years old. And we ended up becoming, you know, quite good friends there. And I actually still have contact to him, which is quite cool. And yeah, so there was one problem though. So we had to stand there for quite a while. We were like, why are we waiting for so long? We later found out it was because the ferry was late. But you know, the ferry came at some point, and we got over the channel, and it was all right. So yeah, then we were over the channel, and we were in France, in Calais, and yeah, and I was like, okay, I've made it out of the United Kingdom, which is quite the achievement. So yeah, now it was time to just get to Paris, where I would have to change buses. But then I realized something, right? The ferry thing kind of took a long time. Like at the time, I didn't know the ferry was late, but I found that out later. And yeah, there was quite the problem, you know. I had to change buses in Paris at Bercy Seine coach station, and I was supposed to arrive there at 10 p.m. and then take the next bus at 11 p.m. So there was like 1 hour left, and that friend that I met there, he looked up on maps how long it would take by car to get from Calais to Paris, and it was almost 3 hours. And it was already like 9 p.m. and I was supposed to arrive there at 10 p.m. and then my next bus was going at 11 p.m. Yep, so I was gonna miss the bus there at Paris. And then, to make things worse, we got across the channel and we rode the bus in France a bit, and then a wheel punctured. Like, and then we got out of the bus and we took a look at those wheels, right? And then they got a new wheel, right? So we were not stranded where we were. Like, we were just in the middle of nowhere, somewhere in North France. But then we found out, you know, why that wheel punctured. Because those wheels, they look dreadful, man. Like, you know, wheels usually, they have a bit of a pattern on them. Like, there are little bulges in them where water can go through and the wheels have good grip, right? And the new wheel looked like that. But the other wheels, and the wheel that was punctured, they were flat. They had a flat surface. How can you use wheels like that? Are you brain dead? Like, you know. But yeah, we ended up being even more late than we thought we were going to be, because we had to exchange the wheel. Yeah. And then we went back in the bus, and the bus driver made an announcement that we were estimated to arrive at 1:45 a.m. rather than 10 p.m. And I was like, oh god, how can this get any worse, man? But I was still happy, because I was like, I'm not in London anymore. Look, you know. And I was traveling with Flixbus, and Flixbus is, you know, it's not the best, but they give you a free alternative. So I was determined that I was getting a free alternative, and the bus driver did end up saying you're gonna get a free alternative. The announcement was in French, and I did up understanding what he said. But there was also this other French lady who ended up translating it for everyone who did not speak French on the bus. Like I was lucky to speak French, but yeah. Then so I did end up getting my free alternative, which was going to depart at 9:15 a.m. from Paris. So yeah, I was going to arrive in Paris at 1:45 a.m. and depart at 9:15 a.m. which was cool. Like, it's just 7.5 hours later, but you know, spending the night in Paris. And but I was okay with it. Like, my mum said, 9:15 a.m. this is too late. Try and get another bus. And there was another bus that I could take to the German city of Mainz, which is not far away from Frankfurt. And she said, look, I can drive to Mainz, I can pick you up. But we were unable to book that. And then she said, can you book a train ticket from Paris to Frankfurt? You can get from Paris to Frankfurt in 4 hours by train, which is even quicker than the car. Can you get a train ticket? But no. We were unable to do that because in France you need a reservation, a seat reservation, in order to travel by train. But the train was full, so we weren't able to do that. So I told to my mum, look, mum, I've pulled all-nighters before. I can survive until 9:15 a.m. in Paris without falling asleep. And she was like, okay then. So the bus, after hours later, we did arrive in Paris at 1:40 a.m. So 1:40 something, I think it was. So the bus driver ended up being right with the estimated arrival time. And I was happy. Like, I was in Paris, Paris is not known to be a safe city either. But Paris, I felt so safe in Paris after London. I was like, hell yeah. And I mean, it was my 4th time in Paris, so I've been to Paris before, and it felt a little bit like arriving at home. But it wasn't the kind of arriving at home in London, which ended up being a disaster. No, I arrived in Paris and I felt good, right? And there was this one incident where another lady from the bus, she almost got robbed by someone. Like, someone was feeling her waist, trying to see if there was some money there, and she had a bag on her, and he was feeling that. And, but I was like, people stealing from other people. I feel good in Paris. I still felt good in Paris because I was not in London anymore. And I was like, yeah, I was just so happy. Like, Paris, I love Paris. I can say that. I love Paris. I hate London, but I love Paris. Like, if they're like, and French people say that Paris is not nice, so I can't wait to see some other cities in Paris, in France as well. Like, yeah. Right, so then I had to wait there. So I decided not to go out on the streets of Paris, so I decided to stay in the bus station Bercy-Sten, or the coach station, I should say, and and I was there with the other people. Unfortunately, it turned out everyone else from the bus who was going to travel to Frankfurt was not going to get the alternative that I was going. So they were departing at 4 a.m., but I was departing at 9 a.m. So yeah, I was going to be alone once they were going to leave. But I was in Paris and I felt safe. Then we had conversations with all the other people from the bus until then, and we ended up talking about things. There was one lady going to Barcelona, and like everyone was unhappy, right? Yeah. But I felt good because after what I had experienced in London, I was feeling good. I ended up also meeting an old lady from Uzbekistan. She seemed to be like without a home or something. like she seems to have properly gone lost when traveling somewhere. Like I could have, right? Like, I'm lucky that I was able to keep a clear state of mind, because I could have just lost my clear state of mind and just completely panicked, and I would still be in London right now, being homeless among those homeless people, and, you know, just being lost forever, you know? When I think about that, I'm so glad that that I remained a clear state of mind in that situation, and I managed to get out. So yeah, that lady from Uzbekistan, she ended up asking me for like buses to go to Israel, and then she was talking about to me about how Russia was going to rise and then Europe was going to fall, and I was like, oh my god, man, stop talking bullshit. And you know, and I ended up, so the others all left at 4 a.m. and I ended up sitting with that lady until 6 a.m. at the bus station. And, you know, she was also starting to fall asleep at 6 a.m. I wasn't falling asleep at all because, you know, I had pulled all-nighters before. And I was able to do it. And I told that lady that I was going to go to the bathroom. But I actually never came back because, you know, I was feeling a bit uncomfortable. And that lady was also, she was kind of a bit rude. So I didn't really feel that bad for leaving her alone there. So then I ended up, look, in Paris I had mobile internet, so I looked for a McDonald's that would open, so I could get a coffee there. And I did find one that would open at 7 a.m. at Gare de Lyon station. And yeah, I walked there. It was not too far away from Bercy, so Paris is not big, you know. Like, central London is bigger than the entirety of Paris. And central London is just, like, in inverted commas, a small section of London. A small part of London, you know. So, yeah, so I ended up walking to Gare de Lyon station, and I went to the McDonald's there, and it was like a McDonald's Originals something, and it had quite the odd menu, I must say. Oh, and we already arrived at Harrow and Wealdstone. Wow, this video is going to be long. Yeah, but I hope the story is interesting. I hope you're not bored from this. So yeah. So yeah, I arrived at that McDonald's. It had quite the odd menu, but, you know, I got one of those burgers. They had like 2 burgers, and that's it. They didn't have any chips. They didn't have any nuggets. Nothing. Just 2 burgers and drinks. I was like, you know, it's fine. I got a burger for breakfast. It had like bacon and eggs, and I was like, that's a nice breakfast. Never had that at a McDonald's before. And I ended up getting a double espresso as well. And yeah, so I had a good breakfast and I had my double espresso, and then I went to Bercy station, which was not far away from Bercy Seine coach station. So it's a Bercy station is a train station, and I ended up doing the same thing like I did in Waterloo and Victoria. You know, just watching trains, and yeah, and so I watched some trains there, and then when it was time to leave, I think I left at like 8:30 something a.m. I left Bercy station and I walked back to Bercy Seine coach station, and my bus to Frankfurt was already there. And yeah, I got on that bus, and this time the bus ride from Paris to Frankfurt, although it was very long and it was kind of dreadful, but it was quite smooth and it was on time, and I had my Tesco meal deals to survive, and I arrived in Frankfurt on time at 6 p.m. the next the next day from when I departed. You know, so I was in the bus for 20. I departed from London at 12:30 p.m. and arrived at 18 p.m. the next day. So I was, my God. I was traveling in a bus for I was in 30 hours. 30 hours. Wow. I can't believe I survived that. But, you know, I was desperate, and I wanted to get out of London, and then I arrived in Frankfurt, and the nightmare was over. And yeah, that's the end of my story. And also the tube just arrived at the other end. So yeah, this is actually perfect. So yeah, we've escaped with the tube in the game from central London. Will the door close? There we go. So yeah, that's it with the story. If you ever want to visit London, please do a day tour. Don't actually stay in the dreadful city of London. Or, you know, I shouldn't say city of London, but, you know, London is technically not a city. But what it definitely is an atrocity, you know. Haha, pun. And, yeah, I'm not ever going back to London ever again. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in some other video where I will be doing it in my normal style, and yeah, bye.